Go. Hi guys, Asera Aviendha here with Pantheon Plus for another couples counseling. It's definitely counseling at this point. Video with my other half, not better half, but my other half, Essen. And tonight we have a guest counselor, a guest host. We have a guest.
I'm not part of the couple.
Not part of the couple.
Not yet.
Just so everyone knows.
Not yet.
Yes.
But
There are no thruples here.
yeah. If you guys don't know Rohan, like, what are you even doing on this channel? He's the most awesomest ever, and we have invited him here for our conversation tonight. What are we talking about tonight?
You could say we pulled him in here
Oh,
because tonight's conversation is about
this
Pulling.
conversation is about pulling in MMOs and why some people thinks that it's a really important job. It might be some people in this video. You never know.
not me.
So if you guys have been around the MMO block for a while, Rohan and I, hearken from the days of EverQuest, you might have had pullers in your group. You might have been a puller. And we just want to talk about why we think that it is an important role to have in a group and how it's kind of a lost art in a lot of MMOs nowadays because they're set up so that roles are almost completely unnecessary anyway. And why we think they will be, or we hope they'll be awesome in Pantheon also.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Indeed.
Gentlemen.
Start your engines.
Start your engines. So, traditional MMOs. We have what Drac has referred to before as the MMO Trinity, where he was talking about
Trinity.
the healer, the tank, and I think he was referring to DPS being the third role. He might have been talking about.
No. Holy Trinity
No?
is tank, DPS.
That's what I just said. Okay.
Maybe in that order. There's an order of operations here. Maybe the tank is the most.
The DPS
Yes.
is the most important. Also, tank is the most important. And healer's never.
Are you saying that because I'm currently the healer in the games
No,
we're playing?
because I'm telling you that's the rule. The tank is the most
Oh
important.
yeah.
The DPS is the most important. And nobody talks about it. But it's their fault.
Anyway, those are the three very important classes, and you can't have a group without those three classes. If you've ever tried to do a healer and a tank, you'll know what I'm talking about how necessary DPS is. But there's also the argument some would say.
Don't let them know.
Some would say that there's a very fourth important
try.
role, which is crowd control, and a lot of people are missing that in the way modern MMOs have been developed for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But and we've heard that conversation before. Like, people are excited about the enchanters and everything in Pantheon, but what we haven't talked about is the fifth piece of the puzzle, which is the puller. Yay!
Isn't even a dedicated role to it.
Right.
It's a bit of a what is it? What do they have in Jeopardy? What's the title in Jeopardy? The
Sudden death?
I don't.
no, it's not sudden. It might be sudden death if you're
I don't know
The
what you're
daily
talking about.
double. Like what is?
the potpourri. They're potpourri. They're a bit of mix of everything, right? Because your puller can traditionally like you or Pantheon or like monk and the puller and off tank DPS. They do all sorts of things.
Yeah, they do. They have many specialties, many hats. That is true. So, Essen never played
Mm-hmm.
EverQuest.
I did play EverQuest twice. I fell off a Calathon, and I did that naked no run.
Okay, fair. I don't.
Okay.
I also don't think you've ever played
Those
a puller, like a puller class, have you? To be a puller or had that role?
There's so few games where it matters.
Yeah. But Rohan and I have. So, Rohan,
Certainly.
why don't you tell us about your esteemed days of pulling? What class were you? How did you kind of get into that role?
Mhm.
And how do you think
Well,
that it affected your group?
Well, I fell into the role because no one, I was a ranger, right? I loved the idea of a ranger, but I found out in EverQuest that people didn't really want you for groups. And I wasn't sure why. I'm like, hey, so every group that I could get into, right? So I would just try and differentiate myself to say, hey, if we're going to keep this group going, and I want to keep people happy in the group, I'm going to start pulling in a faster way and in a different way or whatever. So I ended up just being a puller. And plus, in EverQuest at least, there we did have roots and snares and things like that. So we could slow down and we could space out mobs a bit. Not quite as effective maybe as Feign Death with a monk. But, if you ever go back and listen to Brad MacLeod or Steve Clover, they didn't even intend that for monks. So, you, like Essen was saying, you want to, or people just ended up using what they could. And I think EverQuest was a great place to do that because of the danger that was there, the amount of hardship in order to just get a group and stay in a group and keep people backfilled in a group. So if you could keep mobs coming in, that was kind of my main thing, because people didn't want you in a group unless you were that, because they already had everything else for the most part.
Yep. Unless
or you were just,
like
hey, we need.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Until you got to 55 is what I meant to say. So when you got to 55 as a ranger in EverQuest, then our DPS went crazy and it got really good. But before that, it was just really difficult. So it was kind of a necessity. That was it. That was it. I haven't, and I pulled as a bard as well, which was way easier because you could be so much faster. Sheesh. So, yeah. So, I mean, and because you didn't get so as a ranger until, I don't know, like 20? It was late.
It was, yeah.
It was ridiculous. So
I was going to say 30, but maybe that was,
it might have been 30.
I think it might have been 30,
It was late.
The group one, anyway.
30.
Someone will correct me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that often happens in our comments on our videos as well. Yeah, I was in groups in EverQuest where it was like, so it's a 6-person group, right? And I was even in groups where like every single person had a role. Like you had a healer, the tank, crowd control, and then they often wanted like a slower, like a shaman to like slow the mobs. They wanted a puller, and then like one other like high DPS. So I was in a lot of groups where it was like they were looking for very specific roles to be filled. Especially depending on what their target was going to be, like what they were doing that night. So if you didn't fill one of those roles, it was kind of like, can't be in this group.
So let me ask you, because I never been a puller. Why is pulling important?
So
I think there are a few answers. You go ahead. There are a few answers to that for sure.
Well, and I feel like this is a topic where I'm probably a little bit biased or partial. So I'm curious if other people have other opinions than what I have. I actually did a little bit of homework for this topic, guys. I interviewed a couple of other people who obviously we couldn't have everyone in the video because that would have been a really big video. But we have some information, some quotes here from Daimlos and from Fate, from Pantheon Plus.
Most people, when I say pulling, they're going to imagine haven't done it professionally. They're going to say like, okay, there's a mob. I get aggro, and then I run back to the group, and then we kill it. And that's the whole thing. You're telling me it's far more complicated than that.
Yes, and a lot of people's experience with pulling these days are like as the tank, and they are body pulling.
They're body pulling. Or maybe that's how we do it. It's professional. We just take the whole group and we just move forward.
And you're getting everything.
Right. Or some of them might even have a range. Yeah, some of them might have some sort of ranged thing that they use to pull, but it's still, that's just like the item that they have equipped. It's not usually like an ability that they're using, or maybe it is one ability that they have, like that class just has, but it's still just like, here's the best thing that I can use to do this. And like as the tank, like I'm gonna do it.
Right, like there's no thought put into it. Like the warrior moves up a couple feet, shoots a bow, awkwardly walks backwards, and then you start fighting.
Yes.
How is it done?
Right, and that's if I was gonna say that these days anyway, you just go run at the mobs and you just stay there and hit them.
Yeah.
in games like EverQuest and games like what we hope Pantheon will be. And I don't know, Ashes, and there are other games I hope that are getting more into this and making roles more important, is that when you're polling, you're balancing a lot of things. You're balancing, where is my group right now? Meaning, are they almost done with the mob that they're killing right now? You have to gauge that. I run at half. If I look at the bar, once they're at half, I run out, and then I go and get another one. So that by the time I get back, they'll have killed that one, and I'll have a new mob for them to kill. And you just can keep that XP flowing. But you're also thinking, how many do I have in the group that I'm going to get? Because often there is a group. How do I split the group? Can I snare this one? Should I snare the one over here and body pull this one and then run, knowing that this guy who's going to be snared is going to come fast enough so that I need to run back out and snare him again or root him again? And that's hopefully what our crowd control shall be as well, is that when that second one comes in accidentally, so the poller and the crowd control need to work together in regards to keeping the throughput of it's getting all technical, the throughput of what's the ROI on this group, making sure that your throughput is good so that you can continue, because especially in games where it is a longer time to kill and it is a longer and it's harder to gain levels, you want to make sure that if you're in an XP group, if you're in one of those, that you just keep things flowing through.
Yep.
So, and then also, are they resisting? So you have to be thinking about all of these things at the same time while you're running, while you're avoiding the mobs you don't want, because often, like I would go in Dreadlands is the place I remember the most memorably pulling, and you've got mobs doing this across the whole zone, just wandering across the whole zone, and so you only want certain ones, and so because you can't get the red ones that are going to cross, you have to get these other ones, so or whatever, so I want this one and this one, and so I'm going to just tag them quick and get them far enough so that I can snare this one and get the other one. So the strategy is definitely, it grows as you
there's a lot of strategy,
learn your place, but it can be very, very difficult. So
that's one of my I have a few bullet points of pros of having a dedicated puller in the group, and the first one is pullers can go grab a new mob before the tank is done killing the old mob, keeping the flow of the group going. And you have to be able to time everything. So you don't want to pull too quickly so that you're overburdening your group and they're running out of mana and everybody's dying. You don't want to pull so slowly that everybody is bored. So you have to figure out the flow, and it varies depending on the group. It depends on what kind of class build you have in the group. It depends on how well spec they are. It depends on a lot of things, but how quickly that group is moving that particular night, and you just adjust, and then that's how quickly you can pull. And then like what Moore was saying, there's a lot of things to consider, are the mobs going to be resisting whatever thing it is that you're using to pull with, and do you have to then account for that? You want to make sure you get back in time to get XP for the kills that are happening. You want to make sure that you're pulling the correct number of mobs. Can the group handle more than one at a time? I was a ranger also in EverQuest, and a ranger puller, which is not the traditionally best one. Usually when people think of pullers, if they are familiar with them, they're thinking of the bard or the monk. But as a ranger puller, what I would do is, obviously tracking was helpful, but then I would also pull a mob in 3 ways. So I would root one, I would snare one, and then I would just shoot one with my bow. So I would pull one back at full speed, and then the mobs would come into the group staggered. So I would have one runs in fast, one is snared and making his way in slowly, and then brute breaks on the last one, and then he comes in by the time we've killed the first 2. So I was triple pulling, and it was so fun to time, to know exactly how it's going to flow and how quickly the group's going to be able to take them down, and just have the whole thing. It's like a system. It was really fun.
It really does sound like it's CC on the move.
It is kind of like that.
With less to work with. You don't have all the things that right. that an enchanter has. It's like the street fighting version of enchanting. It's like it's the Krav Maga of martial arts.
There you go.
So, and that makes it's gotten obviously very easy. Like I said, you can just run in and kill stuff now in a lot of games.
Yep.
But if
that's what we don't want, though.
We are, no, certainly not. And I think that if I were to ask anything, it would be make things harder to pull, in a game like Pantheon, so that we can figure out fun ways to do it. So, and I'd love to see a video of what Daimlos or whoever in Pantheon Alpha, pre-alpha, excuse me. I'd love to see what that camera looks like. I want to see it behind their head, as they're pulling stuff and see what they're going through. So
yeah, I think that would be more interesting than Drax.
There was a specific request for that from one of the people in the community. Like, they wanted to see what the view looked like from the person. They said the person who was pulling, which
they're going to see all the action. If you're DPS, you're just sitting in one spot. It's like DoorDash is coming to you. But for pullers, they have to go and explore, and they know what's around the corner. They're watching the other group, what they're pulling. A lot going on.
Yep. Respawn.
My only complaint is that it's tiring.
Respawn rates. It is tiring. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like you don't. In a good group, you're just never resting. You're always running out and getting new mobs, which is great for the group. But it's like, dude, can I just sit here for a minute and someone else do it? So if you can rotate, if there's someone else that's good at it.
We played back in the days before voice chat. Like, were you doing voice chat back then? Because I was not doing voice chat. So it was like impossible to communicate. Yeah.
So, text macros were the best you had.
Text macros. So. My incoming button. So Daimlos, he played a monk in EverQuest, and he gave me some notes about like what pulling was like on his monk back in the day. And then he also said that when he was pulling in Pantheon, it felt really similar to how it used to feel when he was playing a monk in EverQuest, and how it was just like super nostalgic. Like, it took him right back to what that used to feel like, and how excited he was to like have that feeling again. And he's hoping that, like you were saying, more, he's hoping that that's the direction that Pantheon goes in, where it's, it's that challenging. Like, we do have to figure it out based on the tools we have in our tool belt. Because, Rangers were not the ideal puller in EverQuest, but we figured it out, and it turned out to be a really awesome, class to play.
All of that makes sense when you're camping a spot. What happens if you're moving through a dungeon? The group has to move with you. There's a corner you got to go around. Like, does the rogue sneak around and like spot it first, and then the puller goes? How does that work?
I have never played a game where the rogue was the puller before, but Pantheon is obviously adding a lot more utility to these classes than we've seen before. So when I saw them using the rogue as the puller in the videos, like the co-stream that they did before, like last year or whatever it was, I was like sitting here like, wait a minute, a rogue puller? Like, they better be giving Rangers some really cool utilities too.
I'm telling you, I can't speak personal experience because I'm not allowed to. But watching Minus play as a rogue, like, it was so helpful. Rogue, which I've never said in my life. Like, oh, it's great that we have a rogue. Like, never said that before.
They were just great for being murder hobbits like we have in the Lotro streams right now.
Well, I mean, and he told you he was good at it too, so I mean that helped.
He loves it.
So.
He loves the utility rogue, CC rogue. Like,
but we haven't seen. We haven't seen the utility. He showed it really well. We haven't seen the utility. We haven't seen Rangers at all, so we don't know what kind of utilities they're going to be getting. Moving on. So we don't really know what it looks like. Like, whatever they had before, I'm sure has changed quite a bit since then, and will continue to change before it's launched. So yet to be seen. But I'm very hopeful. If they're giving the rogue as many tools as they have, I'm very hopeful for the Ranger. But
like every ability they're making and changing. Like the Enchanter, originally, like a couple streams ago when devs were playing it, They have something called like prick the mind or spike the mind or I don't know, stab the mind. Let's go with prick the mind. I'm sure that's what it is. Anyway, it's stab the mind, and it does a little bit of damage to a mob, direct damage to one target, and it gives the whole group a little bit of mana back. Well, they changed it in the last stream, where it does a little damage to the target, and it gives mana back, more mana back to your defensive target. So you can choose who the mana goes to. So it's not just a no decision skill. It's like you're choosing who needs the mana the most. So it's a decision making for like the simplest spell there is. And I think they're doing that with every single ability. They're making everything really impactful and important. And for pulling, I can imagine there's going to have like real consequences for that.
Right. And that's one of the things I've said before. Like, that's why I'm here, is because they're putting so much thought into everything they're doing. That's why I'm excited to play this game. And that's why I hope that it is super successful and around so that we can play it. And I mean, there's a lot of lines of comparison that can be drawn between Pantheon and EverQuest, which, you know, those of us that hearken from the days of EverQuest, I like that word, hearken, those of us are like excited about that because there's a reason that we think about it so fondly. There's a reason that we, you know, have such good memories and enjoyed that part of it so much. So yeah, like classic, like camping a spot and like doing camp checks and stuff. A lot of people remember that fondly because that was a really fun way to play. And just like mowing through a zone, not so much, at least in my experience. Like, does it work? Sure, especially if you're in a dungeon, like you do have to move through it. But still, even in a dungeon, to go back to your original question, Essen, even in a dungeon, it makes sense to have a class who can be a dedicated puller, because then you're not utilizing your tank. Your tank is still capable of doing tank stuff while you have a class that's out pulling the mobs. So like that's one of my other points that I have listed as a pro, is that like your tank never runs out of heal range. Your tank never dies out of res range. Your tank is in the group like doing tanky things, and you can have a character that's doing the pulling even in a dungeon. Even if you're moving through, you can still like be in a spot and have somebody killing the mob and then somebody else going and pulling the mobs to you, and then you move up a little bit and then you do it again. Especially for somebody who's done the dungeon before, like a puller can be like, yep, I know this dungeon, like this is where this guy spawns, because that's what we remember.
I like how it takes a lot of pressure off the tank, because the tank has always been in every game way too important. Just like they're too important. Where like I talked to Asera before, like you play WoW and the tank joins, and in the first fight, the second fight you wipe, and the tank just like, leaves the group. Like, yep, that's enough. Because he can just get another group. Yeah. He doesn't care. And everyone's saying, well, now we have to wait another half an hour for another tank. But if the tank's not as important, then he can't get a group instantly, necessarily. So he has to, like, wait like everybody else. Like, with the, you know, stick together and figure stuff out. Like, God help us.
I don't... Yeah. Man, do I not like that kind of play. I do not like when people do that kind of thing. Well, I don't want to take myself in another direction, but man, does that anger me.
Certain games reward that behavior. It's how they're designed, intentionally or not. That's how it works.
That's how WoW works. That's why I don't play it anymore.
Well, certain games are designed about, like, you get the most bang for your buck the faster you go, and it's all about speed. So if this group is going to take forever, I can do 2 runs. Sometimes it takes
so like in games like that, it's better for the tank to be able to do everything, because like the tank gets all the aggro and pulls the whole room, and like the healer better be able to keep them alive, and DPS is just there to help burn it faster. But like, there's so little skill, there's so little thought, there's so little planning, there's so little communication, basically none, and quite a bit of it. Like,
I think there is skill. You're right. I think there is skill. I disagree with that, but I think there is not much thinking. I think it's like 6 buttons and you roll with them.
No, that's not skill. You walk into a room and grab everything at once and just start mashing buttons. That's not skill.
No, but there is caveats to that. There are things you can do, mechanics you can play for that, but it's not the same thing as actually stopping things and making a decision, right? Do we do this or do we do that? There is no or. Just do it, right?
Yeah, and regardless, if you have
dimensions.
A group with a puller, the pace is usually better than if a tank is like Moore was saying before. Run out, grab the thing, pull it back, like that whole process slows down.
You're gonna get a heal range
if you have a good puller.
Right, if you have a good puller, yeah, you can certainly have bad pullers too, just like you can have bad tanks, bad healers.
Yeah, I suppose bad pulling would mostly be pulling too many things at once and wiping the group too often. You can't always. Be great for a stream, it'd be fun to see. But as far as the group goes, that's also I was just thinking about this. You don't want to increase your hate too much. That's another thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to hit them enough so that they hate you more than they hate the tank coming in. So you've got to hit them hard enough for them to hate you, which took nothing in EverQuest, obviously. You just had to accidentally hit the attack key on a guard, like I did the first time I ever played my very first character. I'd like, what happened? And then I was out in the woods and I'm like, I don't even know where I am, because you didn't spawn, in the city. You spawned out in the woods somewhere. I'm like, oh, great.
Yep.
Anyway, but so you got to make sure that you're hitting them hard enough, so that when you get back, you have hit them enough so you get credit. Yep. So that's something I am wondering about with Pantheon. Like, what is their mechanic going to be as far as who gets credit? Credit, and can you get credit if you're going? Like, meaning I get XP for that. If I'm can I be anywhere in the zone? And if someone in my group kills something, there's some games that do that.
No, in EverQuest you had to be within a certain range. You had to get back.
Yeah, you had to be close enough. So
yep.
We're about to kill this dude. You better get back here, or whatever. That kind of an idea. And so
that was communication that happened.
You had to. Yeah. So, if you can be pulling and still get credit when you are however long away, that'll all be up to whoever is designing the dungeons and areas, but on how far away a mob is from where a camp could be. But I mean, they don't know where they're going to be. They could try and design some of them, but I assure you that the designers of EverQuest, at least, they didn't make the camps that got made. Because if you go to a different server, there were different camps.
Mm-hmm.
I like going back to a story I was told about Ohio State. I went there, and I think it's cool to visit there. And you go to their big square between all the buildings, and there's sidewalks like haphazardly everywhere. It looks like a mess. You're like, what the hell happened here? Who designed this? And apparently, when they went to put down sidewalks, they went to the dean or whoever's in charge and said, "We're gonna put sidewalks, here, like grid." They said, "No, wait like 3 weeks. We'll see where the students walk, and then put a sidewalks where they walk."
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's like they just put the sidewalks where people would naturally walk. So all this, it looks kind of like a mess, but it's perfect. That's where everyone used.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's Boston's street system. Did you know that? Boston, that's where the old cattle trails were.
Yeah.
So when people would bring their cattle through the town, that's where they naturally were, and so that the roads are nuts in Boston. Apparently,
so a lot of the Northeast is like that. Yeah.
So
DC is unfortunate.
So so the points that I have of why there are positives to having a dedicated puller in the group. Pullers can keep the flow of the group moving faster than if you don't have a dedicated puller. And they know the balance of pulling too fast and wiping the group versus pulling too slow and the group is getting bored. The tanks don't run out of heal range or die out of res range. And then also, we've kind of touched on this too, but it also just provides a job specialty for a class who would otherwise just only be a DPS class. It gives us something else to do, something to specialize in. It makes the class more fun to play, as opposed to just I'm gonna shoot this thing with the arrows as many times as I can before it dies.
It's like a whole. It's like a whole different role.
Mm-hmm.
Entirely, it's not DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
and do you think that? I was just saying, do you think in Pantheon, do you think that will even be a thing? Because I'm thinking about all of the utility that different classes can have. Each class is going to be very individual and add something. So if pulling isn't a class, which it's not, a puller, there's not a puller, hierarchy or whatever you want to call it. If there's not that specific function, because anyone could pull, anyone could run out there and get a mob.
Yeah.
Maybe not very well, but if you have someone who's dedicated and they're running out and doing that and getting that, is that going to take away from that individual's ability to be a part of the group? That might be a con.
I think it adds to it tremendously.
Well, see,
and it
I've
certainly
been in
could.
groups.
I'm thinking about design. Go ahead.
I've been in groups where I'm playing a class where in other games I've been a traditional puller, and now it's always just the tank that's pulling, and I'm like, I think maybe if like you had a puller, this would be going a little bit better, but that's just like not the way people play anymore, and yeah, it's a little bit frustrating for me, especially with who's had experience as a puller, to sit back and be like, I could be doing this, and instead I'm just waiting for the tank to get back so I can start hitting it.
Yeah, I think that in the modern MMOs, the way to beat the game is if you can kill stuff the fastest. And in more traditional MMOs that we like, that we're aiming for, the Pantheon's aiming to be, the key goal isn't the speed. It's you might call it safety, or you might just call it smooth how smooth the run is.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not looking to rush through the dungeon. You're not looking to finish the dungeon, in one sitting or finish it at all. It doesn't matter. You're just going there to thing. But if you die, the setback is enormous. So
yeah, I think that safety is a good word.
Yeah. I don't like safety because it just sounds boring. Right? The goal is safety.
But you want to exist as a group in the dungeon where you're at, and if you are pulling at a rate, or if you have someone who knows what they're doing to pull, and everyone is doing their job within the group, then you can continue to exist as a group.
Yes.
Because all of the other dangers that are around, if you're not paying attention to the repops behind you, if you're not paying attention to what's coming around the corner because you didn't know, you're new to the dungeon, those are things that are highly dangerous. And so if you have someone who can scout, if you have someone who can properly pull and split groups and all of those things that hopefully are a utility that can be had by different people, then you're going to survive longer, and it's going to be more enjoyable, because as much as dying makes it feel like, yeah, we did it, we went, no one wants to die. That's why they ended it. That's why they ended it in games. It's because no one wants to die, because it is so painful. It's good to have the pain in some respects, but I don't want to run back zones and zones and say, okay, guys, I'll be back. I bound in Antonica, and we're in Castle Mistmore. It's going to take me 45 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
So
that's
oops, sorry guys, and then you just drop the group because there's no way you're going to get there. So
that's actually like you described my absolute favorite thing about classic MMOs is every class has a job and has like a certain skill set that they kind of like naturally kind of evolve into. Everybody has a job and knows how to do it. Like you have to, or you're not gonna like continue. You're not gonna get to the level that everybody else is at. And like just having the job, knowing how to do it, then you get in a group where everybody's doing that. It's running so smoothly because everybody knows what they're doing. And if somebody doesn't know, then people used to help them. People used to teach them. Like I remember being in a group. With another ranger. Like you never needed two rangers, right? I remember being in a group. I remember being in a group with another ranger and like teaching him like how to do things, and like, oh, you need to stand on this side of the mob so that you don't get the like you're not getting hit. So people would actually teach you what to do.
That's not what you do. What you do is you right click on their portrait, you select kick from group, the window pops up, and it asks you to put in a reason. You put in nothing, and you hit enter, and then he gets booted from the group. No word, no explanation, gone. That's how you do it professionally.
Okay. So
yeah, well,
oh God, what is this?
And that was part of the fun part, right? That was part of the social aspect. That was part of like, oh man, I met this new group and played with these people I never played before, and they were so super cool, and they taught me how to do this, and like now they're on my friends list.
And then you get a better player, which is like, you know, helpful if you're looking in the future for, I don't know, another group.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the most memorable things about when I first started playing EQ. It was, I don't know, I was like 2 weeks in. And I didn't know what I was doing. I died a bunch of times. I'd accidentally given the book to the priest of Discord and had to restart, you know. So all these things, I was totally screwed up. And then I got into this group near Orc Hill somewhere in Greater Fadark. And some person said, okay, here's how you do things. And she was a female character. I don't know if she was a female or not. Who knows? But, you know, so... I don't know, but she was very nice and said, okay, here's how you do things. And she just explained it to the group as if none of us knew anything, because none of us did. And, you know, and I still remember that to this day. And that's one reason I kept playing. So I think the adversity that is going to happen in Pantheon is going to be, as long as people are willing to say, this is awesome that we have such a hard game to play, I can make videos about it, and I can also, you know, or that, because that's going to happen, you know, it is. Here's how you do this in Pantheon.
Yep.
But also, you know, we're making one right now. But you know, you're also having people within the group, hopefully, that are telling you those things. So, not to belabor that point, but I think that's a super important thing to pass on to people that are out there. Just be nice and help them with their role.
Yeah. I think difficult kind of breeds that, right? Kind of goes into the game that you want to help them, because there will be a time where you screw up, and what you're gonna want is people to be nice to you, because the game is hard.
Yeah, there are definitely better ways to do things, and there are not so better ways to do things, and you want to know what the better ways are.
Everyone else does, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that we've touched on most of the main points. I did want to make sure I mentioned some quotes from Daimlos and Fate from when I had interviewed them. So Daimlos said, if you think back to the best group you've ever been in, or the most experience you ever got in one session, it's likely because you had a pooler that really understands the overall group's ability and how much it can handle before having to take a med break. When I say pooling is an art form, it is learned over many hours of experimenting on how to hold social aggro, how to use the tools you are given to make sure you don't bring something back that can wipe the group. Fate said, referring to EverQuest, people wanted me to pool most of the time, so I started learning how to properly break camps and get a pattern going so that I could chain pool. I actually had a ton of fun and found I had a knack for memorizing patterns so that I would break a camp up and then I would mentally keep track of where enemies were spawning next. And then I told you guys a story about how I used to triple pool. Shoot, root, snare. That was so fun when it would work. When it worked and like they would just come trickling in at just the right rate, it would be like such a rewarding feeling. I loved it. It was my favorite.
And that's like the cool thing about having unique specialized roles. They're like tools, and when tools work really well, it feels good. Right? If you have the right tool for the right job, it's very satisfying to use that tool. Maybe just
that's like your class, honey. Like you're planning to be an enchanter, and like use crowd control and like use mez, and it's the same kind of concept. Like you have to know which mobs you mezzed, which ones you mezzed first, which one the mez is about to break on. Because if you do it wrong, then the mobs are gonna like not be mezzed, and they're gonna start killing people.
That also.
What?
Maybe they deserve it.
More final thoughts?
No, I think this is a subject that I hope a lot of people are thinking about and are prepared to try. Because I'm hoping that we find new ways. You're talking about tools being, when you have the right tool, it's great. But also when people use tools differently than they were intended, that's where a lot of creativity comes in. And I think that can show what a lot of people can bring as a human, even though this is a game, there's, it's an avatar of me. I'm running around there and I'm doing things, I'm talking, and I'm taking the actions that I can within the conceit of the game. But, it's still me trying to do those things. So I think, being able to offer that creativity for whoever is playing is going to be shown, and I'm hoping for big things. I mean, I'm a hopeful person. I'm an optimist for sure. So who knows what it will be? I'm optimistic. I definitely thought things. Yeah, I can be very critical for sure. But when it comes to seeing the kind of thought that is being put into Pantheon specifically, and put behind it, I think we're going to see that these are happening. That all those things that we've mentioned tonight are going to be just lined up, and we're going to be able to take advantage of them. So excited for that.
I have faith. These guys really care about what they're doing. They care about the people that are going to be playing the game. That's why I'm sticking around. I can't wait to actually start doing the things. I can't wait to see the classes.
And I'll just say, one of the biggest criticisms about this game is completely fair, that it's taken, we're 8 years into development. There have been huge setbacks, taking forever, and it's completely fair. But one advantage of that is that they've had a lot of time to think about exactly the way they want things to be. And it's showing in the game. The thoughtfulness is, I've never seen, just the abilities alone, again, I've never seen, there's no move where it's do X damage, right? There's a decision to be made with every single move. It's really, really, the classes are phenomenally interesting. Phenomenally.
Yeah, it makes me nervous that I'm gonna be really bad at my class. When I'm trying, there's too many things to remember.
Show you the right way to do things, more.
A part of the cool thing about the limited action set is that you can potentially dumb down a class if you want to, because you can choose the simplest moves and just load up your bar with that.
If you wanted to, yeah.
It won't be the most ideal.
Or you can spend time learning the one thing and then change it out for something else. It's not like other games that we've played where you have 30 abilities on your bar and then you're wait, what did that one do again?
It's not EverQuest 2 where there are literally 90 abilities. Exactly 90 abilities on the bar, and you log out for a week, you come back, you're shit. Yeah, but they have a lot of abilities. You have to pick which ones you want. They all get that updated by the mastery points unit. I think each skill gets 3 mastery points you can put into it, so they evolve depending on the mastery points you get in. But it's going to be complicated. It's going to be difficult, but damn, it's going to be interesting.
And rewarding. Because of that. Yeah. All right. Let's wrap it up so we don't keep people on the YouTubes or whatever forever. More. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us tonight. It was super fun having you as the first guest star in our couples counseling.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We weren't too counselly tonight. This was more of a conversation.
Shut up, you.
More. Thank you.
I'll stay out of those. Yeah. You're very welcome. Thanks.
Supposed to counsel.
Loved having you in the video. Derek, thank you for letting us do the videos and putting up with all of our BS. Essen, I'll see you upstairs.
Downstairs.
Good night, guys. Let us know what you thought in the comments. And also, serious business though. If you haven't already subscribed to Moore's channel, please go do that. I'll make sure Theric has it in the comments. Please like this video because we are a very likable trio here. And let us know what you thought. Love to hear your thoughts. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks.